आगे कोई निकल गया है तो इससे बड़ा मजाक और भद्दा मजाक कोई नहीं सकता।
जंगल राज वाली जो अवधि थी उसमें भारी पलायन हुआ।
हिंग देना वो वाली MDH की सुपर हीट।
जिन्होंने यूज किया है वो जानते हैं असली हींग का स्वाद।
MDH सुपर हीट, शुद्धता का असली तड़का।
असली मसाले सच सच MDH।
Welcome back. Pakistan and Afghanistan have agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire following days of intense border clashes that left dozens dead and heightened regional tensions. While the Pakistani authorities have confirmed that they are looking for a solution, no such statement has come from the Afghanistan-Taliban. The violence erupted along key frontier points such as Chaman, Boldak and Kurram Khost after Pakistan carried out air and drone strikes inside Afghanistan territory, claiming to target militant hideouts of the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, which is the TTP. Kabul accused Islamabad of hitting civilian areas, while Pakistan said the action was in retaliation for cross-border fire that killed its security personnel. The two countries share a fraught 2,600-kilometer border, long plagued by militant movements and mutual mistrust, with Pakistan alleging that the Taliban government shelters anti-Pakistani militants, a charge the Taliban denies. Today, Afghan Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid accused Pakistani forces of opening fire and killing Afghan civilians, post which Afghanistan retaliated by releasing drone footage showing strikes on Pakistani border outposts by the Taliban. Dozens of soldiers and civilians have died in fierce clashes near Boldak, with both sides accusing each other of attacks. The current ceasefire between Pakistan and Afghanistan closely mirrors the dynamics seen after Operation Sindoor, when Pakistan also sought de-escalation following an intense phase of military strikes. In both instances, Islamabad launched cross-border operations claiming to target militant hideouts. However, once the attacks triggered civilian casualties, diplomatic backlash and retaliatory responses from the Afghan side, Pakistan quickly pivoted to calling for a ceasefire, presenting itself as the party seeking stability and dialogue. The pattern reveals a recurring strategy. Pakistan engages in forceful shows of strength to signal deterrence, followed by rapid calls for ceasefire once the political and humanitarian costs rise. In both cases, the ceasefire serves less as a sign of resolution and more as a tactical pause to manage fallout, reflecting Islamabad's attempt to balance domestic pressure for retaliation with its need to avoid prolonged confrontation with the Taliban regime. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the broadcast at this point in time is Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian. Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar is also with us on the program. And last but not the least, Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat, also joins us on the show. Professor Nalapat, I'll begin with you. So what do you make of this conflict that is happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan? To me, it seems that Pakistan is Dr. Frankenstein, and the creature it created has come back to kill it, because this is a country which said that it helped Afghanistan come out of its darkest times. But we all know what Pakistan did. They armed, they equipped, they militarized Afghanistan to fight the Russians and then the Americans. And now those same people want to take Pakistan out. Your thoughts, sir?
Look, I'd like to point out that the Pashtuns are a very proud people. They have a specific Pashtun identity and a specific Pashtun ethnicity, or at least ethnocentric feeling. And these regard them, the Pashtun feeling is quite different from that of the community that runs the Pakistan army, namely the Pakistan Punjabis. So there is no love lost now between the Pashtuns and the Punjabis. There is no question about that. And frankly, what Pakistan is doing makes no sense from a strategic perspective. Throughout our long struggle in India, for example, we are very, very careful. When we wanted to win over a local population, We never used helicopters. We never used bombs. In fact, we did not even use long-range artillery. Many brave soldiers paid with their lives, but as a consequence, finally, peace came on very volatile regions. Unfortunately, the Pakistan army possesses no such spirit of sacrificing the short term for the sake of the long term, and they are looking only at short term victories. And frankly, the Taliban are very good fighters, and more importantly, they're determined fighters. So no matter how much you try to push them, they'll keep coming back. Look at the way Taliban has come back in Afghanistan. I mean, they were pushed under the carpet once by George Bush. They were pushed again under the carpet, and then finally the US had to sign the Doha Agreement with the Taliban. Of course, Trump now says that he wanted Bagram and all that. We don't know if that's true or not. Nothing to do with the agreement. But the reality is today, Afghanistan, at least the large parts of it, especially those parts controlled by the Pashtuns, are in the hands of the Taliban. And the Taliban are basically a Pashtun force. And they are recognized as brothers and sisters by the Pashtuns from across the border. They regard the Durand line as an artificial line separating the great Pashtun people from one another. And they do not, they try and move seamlessly between those two lines. And my point is the Pakistan army is making a huge strategic mistake because it's creating even more anger, even more tension in the Pashtun community against the Punjabi community that runs the Pakistan military. So I would say, Vineet, that the Pakistan military is always in pursuit of short-term gains, never looking at strategic interests. Look at India and Pakistan. If they had a good peaceful relations with India, Pakistan would be prosperous. Instead, today Pakistan is just falling apart. So I would like to say that unfortunately, I don't think the Pakistan army is susceptible to this kind of logic, this kind of reasoning, this kind of common sense. And therefore, this is going to continue. And frankly, it's only going to get worse, Vineet.
General Kocher, those are good points, Professor Nanapata, as always. General Kocher, there is a reason why Afghanistan has been called the graveyard of empires. No country has been able to, in fact, completely defeat Afghanistan. If you talk about the British Empire, they were not successful. In fact, 1919, they had to completely retreat from Afghanistan. 16,000 soldiers, died of the British Army in 1919. The Soviet Union tried to do it from 1979 to 1989. In fact, the Americans also made a movie about it called Rambo, in which a fictional character helps the Afghans to defeat the Soviets. Of course, that's fiction. The United States, after 9/11, tried to do that. Now, the Afghans, they're proficient in guerrilla warfare. If they climb up on those mountains, it's very, very difficult to control and navigate that terrain. Something that also had advantages for, the country of Vietnam when the Americans tried to invade it. If Pakistan does go into a full-fledged war with Afghanistan, what kind of an instability are we looking at in the region, and what kind of punishment can be projected for Pakistan?
Thank you, Vineet. So very interesting question, because a lot of strategies involved into this question, and military objectives also. Pakistan will never go into Afghanistan for a long campaign or as an occupational force, because past history, as you rightly said, Afghanistan, nobody moves into Afghanistan without the consent of the people there. And there are reasons to that. One important aspect which you briefly mentioned is the terrain. This kind of terrain where these forces have to operate is more of a guerrilla kind of a warfare and less of a conventional war. Pakistan is heavy on the conventional side, and Pakistan is weak on the guerrilla side. So Pakistan will always go for limited objectives in case Pakistan goes in, and it will be restricted to those posts which are there on the border, and not beyond that, because logistically Pakistan will not be able to sustain its army deep inside Afghanistan, And economically also, Pakistan's economy, we are aware, will not be able to sustain it. And most important factor is China is not going to be with Pakistan as far as this adventure is concerned, because China has large economic interests in Afghanistan. And already since 2023-24, China has initiated copper mining and other mining projects. So I don't think Pakistan will ever go in as an occupational force, and that is the reason I just heard in the evening 48 hours ceasefire has been declared, and Pakistan foreign minister has made a statement that this ceasefire is for 48 hours, and we are going to talk to Afghanistan, and we want to resolve this issue, because Pakistan is under tremendous pressure. As Professor Nalapat also mentioned, there is a political backlash because of the ethnicity problem, and also more than 10 to 12 lakh Afghan refugees are in Pakistan today. And in this Chaman crossing, I believe 7 have been shot down by the Pakistan army while crossing into Afghanistan. So we are looking at a very volatile situation for Pakistan, because internally also, if you see, the Tehrik-i-Taliban party is creating a problem in the Punjab and Lahore areas. Then we see what is happening in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Then we see what is happening in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So I don't think Pakistan can handle this cocktail, I will call it. So Pakistan doesn't want to get into a conflict with Afghanistan. It is apparent now. Though Pakistan has used heavy force in the last 2 days, I believe they've used their Baraktar drones, which they've got from Iran and from Turkey also. And they have also used those anti-tank Bakhtar Chicken rockets. And they have tried to carry out maximum damage to the posts of Afghanistan, which are across Chaman and the Turkam crossings. But I think it's a very, very short term. The way the Pakistanis think is they only think in the short term, because they have to understand that Afghanistan is going to be the permanent neighbor. You cannot afford a conflict with this kind of a country which has disregard to their own lives, because Pashtuns are very proud people. They value their sovereignty more than anything else, and that is why the biggest mistake Pakistan did was to carry out those airstrikes, because that was the trigger. And they had done it in December 2024 also at Paktika, and again they have tried to do it in Kabul, and Kabul is a nerve center for them. They will never tolerate a strike in the heartland of Afghanistan, in their own heartland. So that is why the retaliation was very bad. I believe 58 soldiers had been killed, though Pakistan is admitting only 23. And that was a loss of face for the Pakistan army in front of their own people. And that is why we saw this response from Pakistan. And this ceasefire is only going to be short-lived, because this problem has not been sorted out, and this problem cannot be sorted out the way the Pakistan...
Right, and you're absolutely right. Let me also bring in Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev into this. Ambassador Sachdev, in fact, diplomacy is also perhaps a redundant concept when it comes to Pakistan and Afghanistan, because, the size of the trust deficit here is so huge that even if they sit across a table and figure out modalities to get along, it's not going to last long.
Vineet, I beg to disagree. When you have huge trust deficit, diplomacy is required to ameliorate the situation. You cannot live with trust deficit forever. Now, let me be specific. Both sides have been circumscribed by situations that they have. The other two panelists have spoken about what what circumscribes Pakistan. But then let me also add, Afghans are not free to wage an endless campaign. It's a landlocked country, and the only exit they have worth mentioning is via Pakistan. Everything from POL to medicines to foodstuff, foreign trade, comes via Pakistan, most of it anyway. Chabahar is still a concept, and Americans have already imposed, the waivers have been withdrawn. So Afghans have to depend on Pakistan. They cannot endlessly needle Pakistan. Much has been said about the Durand Line. The fact that Durand Line divides Pashtun people, the land Pashtuns are on the side of Pakistan, while the mountain or plateau Pashtuns are on the side of Afghanistan. But then their ethnicity combines them, joins them together. And the difference between TTP and the Taliban ruling Afghanistan need to be appreciated. The TTP, Tehrik-i-Taliban in Pakistan, is a different outfit as compared to Taliban that are ruling Kabul. They have ethnicities which are common, but the tribal structure is fairly different. The Durand Line serves, Pakistan would like to enforce it, but Taliban do not concede that to be the border. They believe the border is where Pashtuns, all the way down to where Pashtuns are living, even in Pakistan. So that expansive interpretation of the border is basic friction point. Secondly, I think 4 years ago when Taliban took over Kabul, Pakistanis rejoiced, but then ISI did what was basically arm twisting the Taliban and presenting them with IOUs, asking them to join in Haqqani group, which was pro-Pakistan, asking them to sign the Durand Line related issues, and also concede various strategic depth concept vis-a-vis India to allow Kashmiri militants to work in set up bases inside Afghanistan.
All right.
Taliban grew out of it. They, having fought for 2 decades against Americans, also remembered how Pakistanis played a double game. They supported Americans, got the money, but also egged on Taliban. To Taliban, this was a perfidy. And they have their own grievances. So all that led to quick...
Fair enough, sir. Fair enough, sir. Let me also rope in Pathakrit into this conversation. Pathakrit, the Bagram base is being demanded back by Donald Trump. But what is it about Afghanistan always attracting the wrong kind of energy and the wrong kind of momentum, especially from countries that, call Afghanistan their friend?
No, but I don't think the Afghans consider Pakistan as their friend.
No, I'm talking about Pakistan calling Afghanistan their friend.
No, Pakistan calls many countries their friend, and eventually everyone agrees to that. But I think, let me put it in perspective, what happened. Let's not look at what's happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan through the prism of how other countries deal with their neighbors. I don't think the Afghans care two hoots that their imports come from Pakistan. They are not looking at it through that rationale. And of course, there is a huge connection between the Tehrik-i-Taliban and Afghan Taliban. What happened would have happened, it was about to implode. Pakistan being Pakistan, they do things and then they think whether they should have done it or not. and they have repeated the same mistake. The Americans want the Bagram base not because of Afghanistan. If they have to do any adventure or any campaign in Iran or in the Ukraine-Russian theater, then from the strategic depth perspective, Bagram gives them the right kind of positioning. However, I don't think the Afghans will be welcoming if Americans want to come in, and therefore the next best alternate, which might be possible, as per Trump might think about it, to go back to Pakistan and set up and operate from Pakistan itself, because there's a history of United States operating from Pakistan. Whether people of Pakistan will accept it or not, well, that's another issue, and certainly they will not accept it. See, there is a parallel turf war going on behind what is happening right now. What is that turf war? The Pakistani establishment is deeply divided between one section which is pro-America and the other section which is anti-America. So if you look at the Pakistan Tehrik-i-Taliban, protest and whatever happened, that organization is considered to be the establishment's organization. They could not have done that kind of protest without a section of the Pakistan army giving a green signal, which means protesting against whom? Not the democratic government or whatever democracy they have, but probably against Asim Munir. And look at it. They protested on the day when Gaza Accord or whatever was being signed. And they were not happy that the Americans were being sided by the Pakistanis. And I think there's a messaging that was done by Asim Munir faction through this retaliation or bombing inside Afghanistan to the pro-Taliban faction of Pakistan army itself. So there is a turf war within Pakistan army happening between what happened vis-a-vis the Pakistan Tehrik-i-Taliban, protest and killing of them, and the bombing in Afghanistan. Bombing in Afghanistan has been something which the Pakistan establishment has considered for years. The reason they did not do this is because they know exactly that there are a large number of Afghan refugees. Every Afghan refugee inside Pakistan tomorrow can be a potential TTP, cell. And even if there is a ceasefire, I don't think it will work. The animosity has grown manifold. There's a huge difference between when Pakistan and India has a face-off vis-a-vis what's happening right now. This is a pure Pashto versus Punjab conflict going on, and it is very difficult for Pakistan to galvanize the whole country. How United States will operate and look at it, well, we have to wait and watch. I think Trump will try to do something great for his dear friend Asim Munir.
Okay.
And if they look for an opportunity to go back, I would not be surprised.
All right.
Last point, it is a test case again that Saudi Arab would never come to help Pakistan in spite of all the accords and agreements they signed. This is a test case. Afghanistan, being Afghanistan, it is difficult to defeat them, and Pakistan has got into a bottomless pit from which it will be very difficult for them to resurface. You would see more bombings, more internal sabotage happening, and Tehrik-i-Taliban now going all out against Pakistan, which is going to happen. We should be very careful.
But the point of deflection, as well as the core behind this disagreement, Professor Nalapad, is also the fact that Pakistan claims that it's the TTP which is being sheltered and nurtured by the Taliban that's leading up to these tensions. But the Afghanistani authorities and the Taliban has completely denied this, and obviously this is something which has been going on for years now. Since 2021, since the Taliban took over, there have been increased instances of TTP attacks in Pakistan.
Look, Vineet, let us look at, if you're looking at supply points, and supposing we say that, the supply points are coming entirely from within Pakistan, well, there is, of course, the Iran factor, and it's not entirely shut by no means. American sanctions, frankly, can be quite ineffective if you want to supply, and certainly a Chinese will have an interest, because there are a lot of rare earth and other very precious minerals in Afghanistan, and a lot of mining is taking place, and there are substantial numbers of Chinese active there, and they would not like to see a regime not collapse, but become violent and hyper-violent as a consequence of what's happening with the Pakistan army And may I point out, Vineet, that if you go back to history, you look at the Vietnam War. I mean, President Nixon tried to finish off all the routes from South Vietnam, from North Vietnam to South Vietnam. Then he bombed Laos. Then he bombed Cambodia, and untold civilian casualties took place. You remember that period very well. I mean, you can't forget the history books. You can't forget the visuals, which are still haunting the world. So the reality of the situation is that there was a complete failure on the part of the American side to stop supplies from coming in. And when you have a border as porous as the so-called Durand Line, the so-called I call because the Pashtuns on both sides do not recognize it, well, there are literally tens of thousands of individuals who are willing to carry supplies across. And are you then going to deny supplies to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and spark even more outrage there? No. So I can tell you that I think very honestly that the question of leverage is not really there. But of course, the whole problem is ethnocentric. And in Pakistan today, thanks to the utter domination of the Pakistan military over every aspect of Pakistani life, including the economy, Balochistan, the bulk of profits go to entities controlled by the military. Sindh, the same problem. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the same problem. And frankly, the seizure of natural resources, and frankly, the very ruthless manner in which the civilians of these places are considered second-class citizens by the Pakistan army, they have basically made people very upset with the Pakistan military. Never forget any stage that Pakistan is not a democracy.
Fair enough.
Donald Trump may have the dinner with Asim Munir. That doesn't make Asim Munir a Democrat. He's very much a military ruler in the old style fashion, and Trump is reverting back to the old US style of relying on military people for asserting authority. But the reality is that Asim Munir, when he's faced with an enemy as deadly as the Taliban, as deadly as the various groups that are now operating throughout Pakistan and engaging the Pakistan military, is not just across the Durand Line, it's across several fronts in Pakistan, and more fronts are opening up each day with the economic collapse, the inflation, the youth joblessness. More and more fronts are opening up. So I'd like to point out that I don't believe that the Pashtuns are going to admit defeat in any way, and I don't believe the Pashtun unity will be stronger as a consequence of this, and that can only be bad news for the Pakistan army, Vineet.
All right, fair enough, sir. We have run out of time. Appreciate everybody who joined us and spoke about this important update. Major breaking news coming in from Punjab. Police have recovered RDX and 3 hand grenades from the India-Pakistan border in the Ajnala region of Punjab. According to reports, a farmer in the village noticed a suspicious bag in the field and immediately informed the police. Ajnala police arrived at the scene, covered the RDX with sandbags, and a bomb disposal squad was called.